I'm curious about, why you decided to create your foundation, MindUP Foundation for Kids, um, which is really about giving them tools and resources to be more mindful.
Yes, to actually have more agency over their emotions,
Uh-huh.
which is what we're
Which is
dealing with
huge.
today. We don't ask our children, in other words, we ask them, to learn, but we don't give them any pathway to understanding their brain. And that's exactly what we do. But what happened the reason I got that is because I was doing a documentary In Search of Joy, because I believe that we as humans are not experiencing, especially in the developed world, enough happiness.
What do you think that is?
There's a lot of things it could be, very industrialized places. London was very low on the happiness scale. The UK, we had what country was on the high level of a happiness? When the more you get into the third world, the more you find out people that are actually happier.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Why do you think certain cities, not all cities, but certain cities with more wealth and more opportunities have less happiness than other places in the world with potentially less opportunities and wealth have greater happiness?
Well, first of all, Denmark was one of the centers, for the happiest people in the world. But there's also a financial sort of socialism, okay? The one thing that was discovered about happiness is if people had just enough money to get by, doctors taken care of, schools paid for, that basically the system took care of them in a way where they didn't have the anxiety around all of those things, that particular aspect of that, which I thought was pretty amazing. Because, you don't pay much to go to the hospital. You don't pay. And all of it says, well, socialized medicine is not great. But I can tell you one thing, if you're happier, you'll be healthier. So this was one of them. And okay, so I want to do this documentary In Search of Joy around the world, which I started. We were talking to HBO, and it was very interesting because everybody's like, that's interesting. Now, what is it? What is it? It's searching for more happiness. It's understanding that this is a mosaic of what's going on in the world, which was interesting because it became a cottage industry, happiness, because this was 23 years ago.
Wow.
So now 9/11 happens, and I'm involved with the brain, involved with happiness, understanding where it sits. Where does happiness exist? How does it affect the brain? And I then decided that these children are going to be traumatized from this 9/11, and that I want to be able to create something that can put in their classroom where they can create more optimism, more happiness. And so I took what I was doing and created MindUP. And I wanted to give that to them, but I wanted to give it to them because just changing a few things and making the classroom an optimistic classroom, making it a place to have an ethos, which is happiness and positivity. That would help the children feel happier and better, because I could see that they were really not. They were showing signs. And when I found out that 10-year-old children were committing suicide back then, I lost it, because I can't even talk about that. When the children who are so young are taking their lives, it's sort of who's doing what wrong, And so now I made that it just was part of my life. And what I did was I had it measured, the program, because it teaches how the brain, basically the emotional brain works, not the whole brain. But they learn about that. And they learn about the amygdala, the prefrontal cortex, which is the thinking brain, the amygdala, which is the reactive brain, and the part of the brain, and the hippocampus, which is where we remember. So once they learn about all these parts and what they do, which is very simple, is that they know our brain break that we do 3 times a day in the classroom allows them to have a correlation and a cognition to what's going on in their brain and how they can regulate their emotions
Wow.
and open up the prefrontal cortex to think, analyze, figure out, experience happiness, have the questions, and memory better. I cannot tell you that I didn't do this. This was University of British Columbia. They researched it. And the research was so extraordinary with these children, even to a point where they said they could make themselves happier, 83%, which is that I just lost it when I saw that. Because we need to make ourselves happier. We need to find the way to do that. And the children, basically that was part of the research. They said now they could make themselves happier. It was so great that we had to do another research because we can't believe this, what these children are experiencing and what's the educators. So now we do another research in another town in Vancouver. Same thing.
Wow.
Okay, and that's when I said, all right, I know I'm Goldie Hawn. I know people think I'm funny. I know I'm not a scientist, but I had a dream for children. And it worked.
Wow.
And so that's when I said, now I can own it because the research speaks for itself. So this is what I've been doing for 21 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
We have millions of children have gone through this program because it was published by Scholastic. And it went all over the world. So we have kids in China. We've got kids in Shanghai, Hong Kong. They're all over, just Portugal, Spain, Italy, basically the UK was a big one. Well over 150,000 children doing it.
And these schools are following these programs now.
Yes, and it's right in New York City. We have 150 schools so far.
Wow. And so they take these little brain breaks throughout the day? Is that what
Yes,
these
so
schools
the
do?
brain break, which is basically takes 3 minutes, we ring a chime. And the reason we ring the chime, this is not spiritual stuff. We're doing it so the brain attaches to that sound. And you immediately will be like Pavlov's dog. They relax, their brain starts to calm down. All the things with the amygdala is like a barking dog. So when it gets excited, when it's got uncertainty and fear and anger and, all this stuff, that's the area where we have to calm that down. Once they know, they breathe and they hear the chime and they sit for, it all takes 3 minutes. They know now their amygdala is not barking anymore, and they actually feel better. They're calmer. They know how to manage their emotions. That's how they do it.